Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate seeing everybody. We hope you're well. Just a couple of announcements right off the top. I'm Bethany Moffi. I'm serving as the interim chair. Uh, we were supposed to have a basic rights meeting this year. We haven't had it yet, so we have worked it out with BPS and the Federation for Children with Special Needs to make up for that meeting on May 15th. That's the basic rights meeting and IEP meeting, Know Your IEP. And you'll hear from someone from the Federation of Children with Special Needs, and there will be BPS staff on hand available to take questions and to support families. That'll be on May 15th. It'll be this same Zoom link, and the time will be the same, 7 to 8:30. And look out for an email with a reminder from both BPS and SpEdPAC. Our last general meeting for the school year is going to be May 22nd, and our topic will be transition services and different options, as well as the board elections. And we really hope that you all come to the board elections. We have several open positions to be elected this year. We will have chair, vice chair, secretary, and multiple board at large positions. So if you want more information about the roles or just want to talk about it, you're interested, but you want to hear more, please email us at Boston SpEdPAC 411. I'll put that in the chat at Gmail, Boston SpEdPAC 411 at Gmail. And we'll be happy to talk to you about the positions and what your roles would be. Tonight's topic is autism supports and services. We have 3 presenters. They'll each be presenting 15 minutes, and then they'll take questions for 5 minutes directly following their presentation. If you don't, we have a bunch of information. I know we all have a bunch of questions. If you don't get to ask your question here on the meeting today, please put your name, your contact information, your preferred contact information, and the question in the chat, and we will absolutely make sure that your question gets answered. It does get busy by the end of the meeting, and sometimes people do not get to ask their questions. We apologize for that in advance, but know that we will get your question answered if you put your name, contact information, and your question in the chat. And I'll repeat that a whole bunch of times throughout the meeting. And right now, I would love to turn this meeting over to Lisa Jean Graf, our SpEdPAC secretary. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to. So sorry. If all the SpEdPAC board members and all of the BPS reps here today could introduce themselves, take 10 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds to introduce yourselves. And after you introduce yourself, pass it on to somebody else. My name is Bethany Moffi. I'm serving as the interim chair. I'll pass it on to Lisa Jean.
Hello, I'm Lisa Jean Graf, and I'm the secretary. And I will pass that on to Hope Bastian.
Hi, I'm Hope Bastian. I'm one of the board members at large. Bienvenidos a todos. I'll pass it on to Edith.
Hi, everyone. I'm Edith Bazell, treasurer. And I will pass it on to Tynisa.
Thank you, Edith. This is Tynisa Adelle. I'm a member at large board member. And I'm not sure who else is on. I am looking. And you guys can help me out to see who else is on. Is Victor?
Yes, we can pass it on to the district now if all the board members announce themselves.
Good evening, families. I'm Kay Seal. I'm Chief of Specialized Services, and we're very happy to be here and to be part of your meeting tonight, and looking forward to a dynamic discussion. And it's nice seeing all of you, and I'm going to pass it on to Lauren.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Lauren Viviani, and I am a deputy chief overseeing all the specialized programs, and I'm honored to be here tonight. I will pass it on to my colleague, Frank.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dr. Frank Vicente. I'm the Deputy Chief of Instruction for Boston Public Schools. It's great to see everybody tonight. Thank you for having us, and I will pass it on to Zach Houston.
Thank you, Frank. My name is Zachary Houston. I am the Senior Director for Applied Behavior Analysis for Boston Public Schools, and I will pass it to my colleague, Jashida Perez.
Thank you, Zach. Hi, everyone. I'm Jashida Perez, Special Education Family Engagement Coordinator. Passing it back to Lisa.
Hi, I can start this all off. Our first speaker is Kate Friedman, the Director of Education for the Program for Inclusion and Neurodiversity. They will be speaking on neuro-affirming schools.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, so I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about building more neuro-affirming schools with Pine. My name is Kade Friedman. I'm the Director of Education at Pine, and we're an organization that provides professional development across the US and Canada to schools looking to be more inclusive. We also support organizations that work with kids outside of school, like after-school programs and camps. And we also support families and are starting to build more resources for community partners, families, caregivers, sort of everyone else who works with kids outside of schools. So in my quick 15 minutes here, and I've just set my timer, we're going to talk about neurodiversity. We're going to look at how ableism shows up in schools, and we're going to mostly talk about how education professionals and all of you out there can build neuro-affirming schools and also neuro-affirming communities in your homes, right? Like this applies everywhere. So we're starting with neurodiversity, and this refers to the natural and valuable diversity of human brains and minds. And what's really important about the word neurodiversity and all of the words that are derived from neurodiversity, like neurodivergent and neurodivergence and neurodiverse, is that they come from the disabled community. I'm autistic, and so I'm also a self-advocate. And a lot of the work that we're seeing happening across the world right now is people moving away from using a diagnosis as an identifier and moving more towards words that feel good. And to say that I'm neurodivergent feels really good. It's not disclosing the specifics about my autism, but it's just letting you know that I might have some needs and you might need to check in with me. Within neurodiversity, there's the neurodivergent umbrella or the neurodivergence umbrella. And this is a way to sort of capture all the different ways that body minds can exist, right? And this could be autism, learning disabilities, ADHD, sensory processing, kind of everything in the mental health spectrum. And lots of times there's co-occurring conditions within here, right? So like I might have autism and anxiety or autism and ADHD. But sometimes mental health stuff also just comes up because of the ways that disabled and neurodivergent people are treated in the world and the ways that the world are not built for us. And so sometimes we have mental health as part of our biology, and sometimes it's acquired because of the ways that we live in society. Something that's important to note, and I just want to say also, my slides have a ton of text. I will not be reading the text on the slides. This is for you for after if you need more information. But what's important here is that our school communities are neurodiverse, and actually I would say that every classroom is neurodiverse, right? And that means that the community is made up of people with a variety of neurotypes. And when we're thinking about this, it sort of blurs the lines of what a general education classroom is because there really isn't such a thing. And every classroom is going to have kids who need different things at different moments. And this is sort of why we're pushing towards more inclusion. When we think specifically about the autism spectrum, as you'll notice, I've dropped disorder off of this because the autism community is really just saying autism spectrum now. It's a much more affirming way to speak. And we have two definitions here about autism from two different autistic advocacy organizations that are run by autistic people, right? The one on the left side from AANE says autism is a natural variation of the human experience. And the one on the right side of the screen is more about how we are. We think differently, we process our senses differently, we move differently, communicate differently, socialize differently, and we might need help with daily living. And this comes from Asan. Something else that we're seeing in places that are moving towards more inclusion is focusing on strengths instead of deficits. And I imagine anyone who looks at this could see how in all of these areas, you could spin one of these characteristics to be deficit-based, but instead we have
Sorry
spun
to
them.
interrupt you. We're interpreters are asking if you could please slow down.
Ah, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
When you're looking at this, you can see how all of these are strengths, but they could also be spun as deficits. And what we're really pushing for in inclusive environments is to focus on the strengths and to see what we can do as opposed to what we can't do. I'm going to talk a little bit about ableism, which for those of you who don't know about it, it's kind of like racism in that it's something that we are steeped in, that exists at the individual level, the institutional level, the systemic level, and is something that everyone is sort of affected by because it's oppression and prejudice about what we can and cannot do, and is often based on what is presumed about you as to what's actually known about you. And I'm going to read the quote on the right from Lauren Melissa Elzy, who's a biracial, queer, autistic self-advocate. And she says that one of the reasons she wasn't diagnosed was because of ableism, right? When she was growing up, the idea that girls could be autistic didn't exist. The idea that people of color could be autistic didn't exist. And all of that combines with racism and this idea that disability or autism has like a way of looking, right? And I think that's really challenged a lot now. And hopefully I'm challenging that as well, as I am not what you might see in the media as an autistic person. So what are some of the ways that we can build more neurodiversity affirming schools and communities together? At Pine, we have mindset shifts, and we really talk a lot about how there isn't like a laminated strategy card that will just make your whole community inclusive. It really takes time, and it's mindset shifts. It's retraining how you think about people and the world so that you're reacting differently in your classrooms and in your schools and in your communities. And so I'm just going to go through a few of them. One of the biggest ones we highlight at Pine is that we need to listen to the experts, and the experts are the people with lived experience, right? And so we're always centering disabled and neurodivergent self-advocates who are educators and psychologists and speech and language pathologists and occupational therapists, and also our students, because our students are also the experts about what they need. And so what some of the ways this might look in your classroom or in your home is reading books by neurodivergent and disabled authors. The one in the middle is A Day with No Words by Tiffany Hammond, and it's about her non-speaking son and what his life is like. And on the right side of the screen, you'll see this profile, and this is something we provide at Pine, where we sort of encourage teachers to give kids blank like avatar profiles and fill out what is unique about you. What do you love? What are you great at? What's hard for you? What helps you learn? What helps you communicate? As a way for kids to become their own self-advocates, but also so that when information is passed from one teacher to another, it's coming from the student, right? It's not coming from an adult's perspective or a non-disabled person's perspective. Another one of the mindset shifts that we push is celebrating neurodiversity. And we just really want to be thinking about how, like, this is just a normal part of life. It's not something different. It's just really part of everything. And so this means that we're not saying, oh, the disabled kids go in a separate classroom. We're saying, no, let's find a way in the classroom for everyone to exist. And that doesn't mean that the neurodivergent or disabled kids are conforming to the general ed classroom. It means that everyone has to shift what they're doing and meet in the middle somewhere, right? The burden is on everyone, not just the neurodivergent and disabled kids. And so this could look like offering a checklist that says, how do you need to learn today, right? And letting kids choose if they want to sit on the rug or stand at their desk or have space to move around. It could also look like intentionally planning in movement breaks and brain breaks so that instead of waiting for kids to need them, you're anticipating it and building it in. Another one of the mindset shifts that we talk a lot about is how inclusion is a mindset. And lots of times when we're talking in schools, it seems like inclusion exists with the special ed teachers and related service providers in special ed classrooms. But in order for an entire school community to be inclusive, this has to live everywhere. It has to be part of what everyone is doing. It has to be present in every room and space and classroom. It's not just about one person, one team, or one room. And so what could this look like, right? It could look like having bean bags and sensory kits and voice meters in places where kids might need a little more support, managing themselves, self-regulating. And this is for everyone, right? This isn't just for the neurodivergent and disabled students. This is just part of the school life. Committing to strengths is another one of our mindsets, and this harkens back to the image I showed you at the beginning of the presentation about autistic strengths. And something else that's important to highlight here is that when we commit to strengths, we're really taking what kids love and are good at, like their strengths and interests, and weaving that into everything else. We're not just using it as a reward, like for doing the right behavior, right? That's not the purpose of it. It's an authentic way of engaging kids by connecting what's happening in the classroom, what they need to be learning, to things that they're already good at and that they're already interested in. And this sometimes for teachers, this can be hard. And so it could look like filling out a neurodiversity strengths checklist, like you see on the left side of the screen, right? It could be just having lunch clubs around student interests, where kids get to meet kids from other classes and grades and really bond over something that's important to them. I think this is my last one. Presuming competence, and we hear this a lot throughout the disability community, like just really starting with the belief that everyone is capable of learning, connection, and growth. And we specifically see people not presuming competence in schools with non-speaking students. And so we want to be super conscious of the fact that the way that you communicate has really nothing to do with your brain. It's a totally different part of how you experience the world, how you express yourself. And so assuming and presuming that everyone is competent of doing the work is a way to really start in a place where you're honoring each kid as a human being and not adding on ideas that you have about the way that they communicate or the way that they learn and judging them by that from the start. And so this is just one idea of what this could look like in your school, but right, lots of schools have like contracts or school commitments up on the walls. And this is a way to do that that's inclusive and affirming, right? Reminding people to use language that's person-centered or identity affirming, whatever the person wants to hear. And speaking about kids, about their strengths and not just their limitations. Something else I want to talk about is language. You know, affirming language, the education systems in this country are a little bit behind the neurodiversity and disability movements in terms of the language that people find most affirming. And so instead of saying high functioning, which is not being used anymore in the disability community, we're saying someone who has low support needs. And you can imagine if you were to call someone low functioning, that does not feel good. But when you're speaking about someone, imagining they're in the room when you're saying it, right? And would you call someone low functioning to their face? Like that doesn't sound really great. Instead, you could say they have moderate or high support needs, which is an objective way to talk about their needs in a way that isn't about their character or like a flaw in themselves. It's just another piece of information about them.
I'm sorry to interrupt. There's one more minute for this presentation.
Thank you. I'm almost done. And the last language piece I want to just mention is we used to say nonverbal, but actually the non-speaking community has been very, very vocal about wanting to be called non-speaking because that is a disrupting in your brain of what it means to equate language and brain power. And so this is just like, you know, creating a culture of belonging is really whole school work. And hopefully that is what you're getting from all of the things that I've been talking about in my last 30 seconds. I just want to thank you and let you know we have a conference coming up. And if you want to scan this QR code, we have a free session that's for parents and caregivers called Connecting the Dots. And it's really about what does it look like for families to be managing especially if the adults are also neurodivergent or disabled, having neurodivergent or disabled students, I'm sorry, children, and interfacing with the community? What does that look like in after-school groups and summer camps and extracurricular activities? And so thank you very much. And I think it's maybe time for questions.
Thank you very much. That was really awesome. Appreciate it as an autistic person, thanks especially.
Good job, Kade. Good job.
Thanks.
So we'll now offer 5 minutes for questions and answers. Please raise your hand in Zoom or ask your question in the chat.
I have a question with the last slide that he just said, with the way to say things like nonverbal, non-speaking. Like, I know it's always been said to me, like, oh yeah, you know, is he nonverbal? Is he nonverbal? Like, I'm saying everyone, like, do we now say non-speaking? Like, do we correct it, or do we just, is it like old language? Because I feel like that's the only language I know is nonverbal, you know?
Yeah, if you're talking to adults in the non-speaking community, they prefer non-speaking.
Oh, okay.
There are many articles out there from different kinds of advocacy organizations run by non-speaking adults who are saying this is the preferred language.
Okay, all right, then I'll just say non-speaking, go forward. I that's neat. I just haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like, I know he doesn't speak like that. I get that, but it's always nonverbal. Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Super. This was helpful. I like that. And I like how you added in, like, how they like bean bags and different things that they could incorporate maybe in school. I was getting him a bean bag. Just trying to think of fun sensory extra things for him to have, especially as he gets older, since he's not so much into those little toys anymore. So that was helpful.
Okay, there's a question in the chat. It says it's from, I think it's Wanda. I'm sorry, forgive me, you guys, if I chop your name up. It says, is there a list of schools that are currently implementing this curriculum? And then it says our program.
Yeah, so Pine's not a curriculum. We provide professional development and coach teachers. And so lots of time, we have a whole platform full of courses. We have a library full of tools. Everything is digital and asynchronous. And it's because we know teachers are busy and it's really hard to get everyone to do something at the same time. And we also know that with universal design for learning, we want people to have choices, right? We want it to feel meaningful. And so the idea behind our professional development is that anyone can sort of get what they need. We're not going to like tell you what to do. There's not like a prescribed anything. It's a menu, just like a choice board.
Great. There's another question that says, I would love to learn more about after school. Oh, they're going fast. After school and before school programming support. I'm not sure if that's in the schools or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have trainings for people who work with kids outside of schools. So if anyone's interested in that, you can just go to pineprogram.org. I can put that in the chat too. And our conference is also there. So if you didn't scan the QR code, you can just, that free session is right on the website.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next speaker, and that was completely awesome.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Our second speaker will be Amy Weinstock. I'm the director of Autism Insurance Resource Center. She will speak on how insurance can cover an autism diagnosis, as well as the services that the Autism Resource Center can offer families. And go to town. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Kade, that was such an amazing presentation, and I definitely want to follow up with you. I'm going to have to ask everybody to do a big mind shift. Just think about the really cool background that Kade had in her presentation, and then look at my background and my slides. And this is going to be a little more clinical and a little more technical, but it's important information for families and educators supporting students and the community in how you really, what you need to access the medically necessary services. And so my background, I come to this as a parent. My daughter's 27. We didn't have the kinds of programs like Pine, so I spent many decades cataloging her deficits, and I look back at pictures now and go, wow, I really missed a lot of really cool, amazing, strong things that she was doing. But she still has grown up into being an amazing, wonderful person with a lot of strengths and still a lot of needs. And I got into this work because as a parent, I found it very, very frustrating that we couldn't access anything through insurance. Depends on your policy, but pretty much they said, you really sorry, your child has autism, neurodiversity, go to your school and good luck. So that's my background. And if you just take one thing away from this slide is if you have questions about insurance and services and treatments, and lots of things related to that. We have a great website with great fact sheets and a phone number where you can call with people who answer the phones, and our team gets back to people quickly because we are all parents who have been on the other end of phone calls that haven't been returned. And at the last slide is also going to be my contact information as well. And we are a resource for the entire community. And in layman's terms, everybody in Massachusetts, fortunately, has an insurance card. We don't get calls from people who are uninsured. Those cards really have a lot of information, but they don't tell you much about, okay, my child needs XYZ. Maybe they went to the doctor or even the school team. And it's like, really, a little extra occupational therapy outside of school would really help. And there's nothing on your card that's going to really show you how to get that. And then everybody's card has a whole inches and inches of regulations and laws surrounding it. And to make it more fun, there's over 100 people here. There could be 2 people, 4 people with exactly the same card, and their coverage is actually subject to different laws and regulations. So that's all the kind of geeky, nerdy stuff that we do because it's really hard for anybody to figure this out on their own. And as I said, we help the entire community, thousands of people each year, majority are families, but we also work with providers, clinicians, educators. And what's really, I find a cool part about our center is that we like to refer to ourselves as Complaint Central. People don't pick up the phone and say, I'm going to call and just tell them everything is going great. Maybe some of you out there it is, but we don't hear from them. We hear from people when there's problems. But what we do is we listen to what those are and we help individuals with whatever those problems are. But we also are taking notes, and I wouldn't say the kind of systematic data that some scientists might consider systematic, but I'm not a scientist. But we take that information, and when we see something that is a trend that is a concern, we can aggregate that and we can bring that to state agencies, the Division of Insurance. We can bring it to regulators. We can bring it to the Attorney General and legislators. So, insurance coverage for autism behavioral treatments is relatively new in the scheme of medical treatment. And it's, I don't want to say growing pains, but the implementation of these relatively new laws and rolling out of the supports and services and treatments is something that, we've all kind of learned a lot as we've gone through things. So let me try to move my slides. So I'm going to talk about the diagnosis of autism, not because I'm a diagnostician, certainly, but in order to access the services and treatments that are mandated under some of these laws, generally a diagnosis of autism is required. Not generally, it is required. It's expanding in certain ways that I don't have time to get into tonight. But what we find is, especially with the current prevalence of autism, it can be really challenging to get that diagnosis. There's no one way to do it, unfortunately. There's not a blood test and there's not a X-ray or a culture. So, and if any of you, I'm sure there are people on this presentation who have been at the other end and may still be at the other end of very, very long waiting lists. But the reality is, to access these treatments, there are not, the barriers are not quite as high as some would be led to believe, and there's a lot of confusion. So in addition to this slide deck, I did send along a fact sheet that we have. This is language from the laws, from our fact sheets. What's the reality of autism diagnosis is required by a physician or a psychologist. They have to be experienced, they have to be, and that's just medical practice. You practice within your scope. But it does not require a specialist. It does not require a full neuropsych exam. If we had,
Hi, excuse me, Amy, this is Tynisa. You have 9 minutes left, just doing a time check for
okay,
you.
thank you. If we had, nickel for everyone who called and said, oh, I have this diagnosis, but I was told I have to have a full neuropsych before I can get XYZ treatment. We are rabid about those. We dig into those. And in almost every case, that is not coming from an insurance company. It's coming from a provider. I even had one provider, when I called to, a pediatrician had provided a diagnosis. They were told, come back in 18 months when you have a specialist. And the provider goes, well, yeah, everything's here, but insurers can be really picky. And I have no patience for that, and we shouldn't. So it's hard to get a diagnosis, and it's also hard sometimes to get people to accept a diagnosis. But if you're a family that's waiting for a diagnosis, or you're working with families, here's some general advice. Get on several wait lists. Ask professionals to notify you if there's a cancellation. Things happen, children get sick, parents have obligations that call them away. So you may be on a very long wait list, but if you call every month or so and ask if there's a cancellation, and they know that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when they find out that Johnny is not coming in at 10 o'clock in the morning, they call you, you will drop everything and be there. You can often get in quick. School psychologists do a lot of testing. This is for school services. They do not diagnose autism, but many of the tests that they do to evaluate for school services are the same tests that doctors use to confirm autism diagnoses. So you can get some of this testing, and we are working very hard with pediatricians who aren't always aware of this to say, if you have a patient with this, don't just send them for referral and have them wait this long. Find out what they have, look at what they have, and if they have testing and you feel comfortable, confirm that diagnosis and ask your pediatrician if they know of resources. Call our center. We have advice. We have templates that pediatricians can use. And, COVID was so disruptive in so many things. But one thing it did was it advanced telehealth by probably a decade or more. And so there are ways to also get evaluations and stuff that might be easier to access via telehealth. There's also been a lot of newfangled stuff that I would say might not be ready for prime time. So in this venue, it's just always buyer beware and be careful. So just in terms of insurance overview, I'm going to really go quickly. As I said, everybody has insurance. It falls into 3 main buckets. The yellow are public plans, which would be Medicaid, Mass Health, and Massachusetts Medicare, which is usually older people, not always. And then private insurance falls into 2 categories. And again, when I told you about people who could have the same card, but different rules and regulations, this is where we start with families to figure out, what insurance they have, is it covering what they need? And if it's not, can we help them move to one of those overlapping circles? Most frequently in a lot of our work are families that have private insurance, usually through an employer. It's not covering everything they need, or they need help covering copays, deductibles, and we help them obtain Mass Health as secondary insurance. This is just a timeline of the coverage, services, and supports, because it does change. So from birth to 3, people generally access through insurance and early intervention. 3 to 17, it's insurance and education. 18 to 25 is transition age, and lots of things change. If we have whole presentations on transition, and if the Boston SpEdPAC does transition kinds of workshops, you might want to have us. And then one thing to know is that over 26, all children can stay on a private policy, but disabled children can stay on beyond age 26. And for some of the specialized treatments for autism, private insurance is the only insurance that covers that. A lot of mass health services end at 21. Medicare really doesn't cover a lot. So for families in those age categories, you want to pay attention to those things and reach out for things. And then the last thing is, so how does all this affect educational services, IEPs, et cetera? This was something I was particularly concerned about when I worked on these laws, because
Amy, this is the sign language interpreter. We have not seen the slides. I've noticed that I'm not seeing the slides, and there's been several comments that we can't see your slides.
I am so sorry. I'm in slideshow, and did I not share my
I
deck?
think it's not sharing, and so it would be helpful as the interpreters to see it. And also it just seems that there's been several comments in the chat too.
Okay, I am super, super sorry. Can you see
It's
them
okay.
now?
Yes.
Yes, you're just in the view
Yeah.
where we see. There you go.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, the most important slide is how to contact us. And I am super, super sorry. But what I was ending with was just that insurance should not be affecting any school services under all of the laws that have been in effect for decades. So if anybody has questions about that or concerns, you can certainly come to our center, and we're happy to help. I will take questions, but what I am going to do, and I did send a copy of these slides to Lisa, so she is going to post those. While people are asking questions other than where are your effing slides, I am going to just flip through the slide deck.
We're having trouble with Haitian Creole interpretation. So for all English-speaking families, if you could please join the English channel, because I will be muting the original audio. So again, if you could please join the English channel. We are trying to support the audio in the Haitian Creole speaking channel. Let me know if you have any
Also,
issues.
this is just a time check for Amy. You have 2 minutes for the rest of the presentation.
I am done.
Okay.
I was going to just take questions.
Beautiful.
But I'm going to just start with all my pretty pictures. So,
Okay, here's one question from Marianne, I think that's how it's pronounced, forgive me. It says, can kid be out of inclusion classroom due to behavior that school doesn't want to help with academically? He's doing good.
so that is a education question, not an insurance question. So it's a little outside of my expertise.
Hi, this is Frank Vicente. I think a couple of us did respond to that in the chat. It's just important that parents have any questions like that, please bring those to your IEP team and feel free to engage your team in those conversations so that there's an opportunity to discuss any potential changes in an IEP meeting. And reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Hi, I'm sorry I can't type because I'm driving, but I had a question. So you mentioned something about that the children out of, misunderstand that if someone with autism ages out of the mass health system.
They don't age out of the mass health system, but certain services for autism and behavioral health end at age 21. So you still have mass health and it still covers your medical treatment, but there are certain services that it doesn't cover that private insurance covers beyond age 21 with no age limit.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I just had a question with when you were speaking and you were saying just make an appointment with the doctor. There's always cancellations and, you know, you can't get in. Sometimes it's a really long wait and all that stuff. Was that just for an autism diagnosis or what was that for?
Well, it's generally unfortunately, it's with a lot of things these days, but particularly for some of the specialty clinics that families go to for autism diagnoses. They have wait lists that are a year, 2 years. I've heard some of them don't even put your name on it anymore. So I was referring to autism diagnoses, but it's generally good advice.
Okay. Like, yeah, because my son got an autism diagnosed with autism. So probably wouldn't apply to me.
So somebody did put in a question about their child was diagnosed by one doctor with one insurance, but it's changed insurance and needs a follow-up, but the doctor doesn't cover the new insurance. So that's a general question when insurance changes, and you might want to contact our center for advice. But unfortunately, if your new insurance has a different network, you probably have to find a different person. Your insurance should help you try to locate that person. And there are no requirements for re-diagnosis in autism. Certainly, it's something that you want to have followed, especially as a child is growing and changing. But there shouldn't be a specific requirement. But that's the kind of inquiry that we might get at our center. That we're happy to help with individually.
I have a question. My youngest son, he was diagnosed with autism through ICCD, and I was trying to have my older son tested, and the school has encouraged me to continue pursuing testing for him. However, I was informed that my insurance wouldn't cover it because he was age 3 at the time. And apparently what I was told at ICCD is that my insurance wouldn't cover after the age of 3.
So I would have to understand, what the insurance was and why they wouldn't cover it. ICCD is a practice I know, and they have a good office staff. So I don't know what the specific insurance issue was.
Okay. Is that something I can contact?
You can call our
reach-
center,
Yeah.
and we would try to, I'm not going to ask you what your insurance is and exactly what that was, but that's something we're happy to try to help with. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all wonderful. Amy, you gave excellent information. I did share your slides and your handouts in the chat, so people have access to them right now. And it'll also be on the website. So my apologies for not cutting in, but you were doing such a great job sharing the information, and I wasn't sure when to break in. So my apologies.
They're much less pretty than the other slides. Is there time for one more hand? Somebody has their hand raised. Maggie?
I think we have to move on to the next person, unfortunately, but they can put their, but we will follow up with that question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so our third speaker is Stephanie Coburn, a Children's Autism Waiver Program Manager for the Department of Developmental Services.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I also brought my coworker with me, Mary Kate Haswell. And together, the two of us are the two Children's Autism Waiver Program Managers for DDS. And I first wanted to state, Amy and Kade, you guys did great presentations. It's a hard act to follow, so we will try our best. And we also wanted to thank the Boston SpEdPAC for having us tonight. I'm going to share my screen and then we will get going. Can I just get confirmation that people can see my screen?
We could see it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Mary Kate Haswell. I'm going to kick us off. I also wanted to thank Kade and Amy. We actually sent a ton of people to Amy, so I would follow up with her offer of helping you all out, but because their agency just does a great job helping people sort through that. So Stephanie and I are going to talk about our funding source. We're going to go over a little bit about the, oh, can you see that comment? I can't see the interpreter. We're going to talk about eligibility requirements for our program, the different services that we offer. We're also going to talk about the intensive portion of our program versus the step-down portion. We have 2 different staff who work in the program, so we'll talk about each of those roles, the autism clinical manager and then the autism support worker. And then we'll also talk about reasons for withdrawal from the program. So our funding source, we're technically called the Children's Autism Spectrum Disorder Waiver, a home and community-based services waiver. So it's quite a mouthful. Basically, it's approved from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. We have 5-year approval periods. We're actually currently in the middle of resubmitting our approval for next October. Fingers crossed, we're partway through that process. So hopefully we'll be renewed for the fall. I'm sure we will. And then we're also a Mass Health waiver program. So it's kind of owned by Mass Health, but it's administered by DDS.
So one of our requirements that we have with CMS is every year for 2 weeks, we have to have an open interest period. And it usually occurs for the last 2 weeks of October. During that time, we have a 1-page interest form that families can fill out and submit to us via email or regular mail. And we're hopeful for this year that we're actually going to accept forms electronically. So we'll accept it during that 2-week time frame. After that 2-week time frame, we compile what we call our open interest list. We separate the state of Massachusetts by 5 regions. So we do Northeast, Southeast, Metro Boston, Central, and West. And well, depending on where you live, we put you in a region, and then we randomize our list. So it's a lottery process. So it doesn't matter if you submitted your application on day 1 or day 14, you have the same chance of getting pulled for the program. Our list does expire after 1 year. So once we start the next open interest period, the old list goes away. And it is also important to note that the child does not need to be DDS eligible when you're sending in that interest form to us.
So the eligibility requirements for the program, and Amy actually touched on this as well, the child needs to have a verified diagnosis of autism. So usually what we're looking for is a diagnosis report that's pretty involved. So it has the testing that was done and the testing scores. If families are thinking of applying to DDS, having that paperwork or getting that paperwork rolling would be really helpful. The child also needs to be a resident of Massachusetts, and they need to actually have Mass Health standard insurance. I know in the last year or so since COVID ended, I guess, there's been a lot of redeterminations. So people want to just make sure that they still qualify for Mass Health standard because that's the only insurance that our program accepts. We work with kids up to the age of 10. So the day before they turn 10, they can be up until the day before they turn 10, they can be in the program. And they have to meet a certain level of care. This is determined by our psychologists. So they'll look at the assessments. We might need to do a Vineland or another type of assessment. And then the psychologist looks at all the supporting documents to determine whether or not the child is eligible. And the child, all right, well, I'm going to say that down lower, so I'll wait. There also needs to be a responsible parent or guardian who's willing to participate and have the services in their home and community. And the child needs to be able to be safely served in the community. So some of our kids have pretty significant behaviors, and that's fine, but they need to be able to be safely served. The child has to be DDS eligible to participate in the autism waiver program, but like Steph said, they don't have to be eligible right when they send us their application for the waiver program. We can do that determination for both, for DDS and for the autism waiver program. It's possible to be DDS eligible and not waiver eligible, but anybody who is waiver eligible is also DDS eligible. That's just based on the level of care that we've determined.
So within the autism waiver program, we are a full self-direction model, meaning that the parents get the choice of what they would like their child to work on in the program. Because we will not let a 3-year-old tell us that what they want to work on, because they'll just want to watch Bluey all day.
Right.
So the main focus of our program is an in-home behavioral piece. So we offer ABA, floor time, RDI, combination of the 3 of them, or any scientifically backed behavior therapy model that includes data. On average, we offer a minimum of 6 hours a week of one-to-one in the family's home. And then we also do some consultation with like a BCBA level, which is about 4 hours a month, in addition to the 6 hours a week of the in-home. And we do know, like probably everybody on this call, there is a shortage of providers. So we do our best to kind of get those hours up and going within the house, and sometimes get on wait list, but we try our best with that. In addition to those in-home behavior therapies that we offer, we have additional services that are secondary to the in-home, and the budget for these is much less, but we can offer purchasing of some safety items for either the house or the vehicle. We offer a home delivered meal service to address food insecurities. We offer babysitting. We can purchase some sensory items that are recommended by either the BCBA from school or the one working on our program. And then we offer some community integration and community programs as well for the child to be included in the community. Mary Kate, you're muted.
Sorry, my dog was barking. We have the intensive program, which is the first 3 years that the child is with us. Those budgets can be up to $28,000 based on assessed need. And again, most of that goes towards that in-home behavioral therapy with a senior level therapist and a direct support person. But it also, that would include those ancillary services that Steph mentioned. There is an in-home behavioral therapy requirement, so those certain hours a month and certain hours a week. But then that families also have access to all those ancillary services. After the child's been in the program for 3 years, so year 4 through the child leaving the program or turning 10, the budgets are up to $9,000, again, based on that assessed need. In-home behavioral therapy at that point is not required. It's available, but it's not required. But there is a behavioral consultation requirement. So parent consultation a couple of hours a month. And again, there's access to all of those ancillary services.
So now for the staff that works on the autism waiver program itself, we have an autism clinical manager who we refer to as an ACM. The ACM works for DDS, so they are state employees, and they provide oversight and management of the program itself to ensure that we are in compliance with our CMS requirements. They meet with families a minimum of a quarterly basis, although they are available more often than that if there is a need. They are the ones that complete the eligibility assessments for DDS and the waiver program. They help with the creation of the budget and the autism support plan. And one of the other assessments that they do is on a yearly basis, we do have to make sure the child continues to meet eligibility for the program. So they'll do what we call a level of care, just to make sure that the child is still appropriate for the program. And they provide a clinical oversight and a clinical management of the program and support to families and the other team members.
The next person who is involved with the family through the waiver program is called the Autism Support Broker. The Autism Support Broker works at one of the 7 DDS-funded autism support centers. So the ones closest to Boston that would cover Boston are VinFin and LifeWorks.
Yeah.
Almost drew a blank. There we go. And the parent has a choice of which autism support center that they want to work with. So again, under that self-direction model. The support broker provides day-to-day support to the families. They also help the family create the autism support plan, which is similar to an IEP, but it's much more fluid. So if you're working on something, you have some goal for your child, and that child accomplishes that goal, it's very easy to kind of adjust the plan. The support broker also assists the family in identifying and interviewing and hiring providers. So they are in on that, again, self-direction model. Support broker can help set up an interview with the family to meet potential providers and to hire them. They also help the families process invoices for approved purchases, again, anything that relates back to a goal. And they help providers with contracts and timesheets. Autism support brokers usually meet with the family at least minimum of once a month. They also have an eyes-on requirement to see the child at least every other month, just to make sure everybody's doing okay. They meet with the family in the home. They attend the quarterly meetings with the whole team. And then they also notify the autism clinical manager if there are any issues coming up. So, if the family's experiencing food insecurity or homelessness, domestic violence, like more of like a targeted case manager, they would help identify those issues so that we can help the family find more support.
So reasons for withdrawal from the Autism Waiver Program. So the top 2 reasons, the first one is the child turns 10. As Mary Kate mentioned earlier, we cannot have any 10-year-olds in the program. So the child's last day in our program is the day before the 10th birthday. And the other main reason that we're seeing right now that a child leaves the program is that they lose Mass Health standards. So they lose the insurance that we're able to accept. I did see a question in the chat a little bit ago about Mass Health standards. So Mass Health standard is the low income insurance for the state. So there is a financial aspect to the Mass Health standard piece. And I think Amy was answering some of the questions about it. Sorry, Bethany.
I'm very sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry. Just to let you know, there's 1 minute left.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to get this done in 1 minute. The other reasons that a child can leave the program early is one, that the parent just chooses to leave the program, that they don't want the in-home services anymore. If the child or if the family moves out of Massachusetts, they can no longer have the Massachusetts Autism Waiver Program. If they were to get accepted into another DDS program, like the DESE DDS program, we would let the child go into that program. And if the child is placed in a residential program or a residential school, they would no longer be eligible for this in-home program. And if the family is not complying with the waiver regulations or policies, that is another reason why we would withdraw them from the program. And that brings us to our question slides. And I think we're right on time, Bethany, for that.
The timer just went off. You are
perfect.
excellent.
See, we did it. So we can take questions.
Please raise your hand. Oh, there you go. Raise your hands for questions on Zoom or put your question in the chat. And I see we have Michelle Curran with a hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Oh, Michelle went away. Oops. Feel free to raise your hand with any questions. We have Stephanie here. We also have lots of staff and leadership from BPS to answer questions. If you don't feel comfortable, okay.
There
Go
was a
ahead.
question that just popped up in the chat of if you're accepted into the program, do you have to reapply every year for the lottery? And the answer is no. Once you are accepted in the program, you are in the program as long as the child continues to meet the eligibility criteria. So you do not have to reapply every year.
I was wondering, I was told that the DDS, like the children can keep it until they are like adults or whatever. Is that true?
Yeah, so once you're eligible for our program, and then if the child turns 10, then we would transition you over to our area office services. And then, yes, you'd be able to, there might be another reevaluation at that point in time, but once you're in the DDS system, you're kind of in there through adulthood.
What is that program?
There's the DESE program is what Steph mentioned. That is kind of a partnership between the Department of Education, the old name for DESE, the Department of Education, and DDS. So it's some behavioral supports. There's also just regular area office services, which might be some family support, some stipends, and also you'd be assigned a children's service coordinator, kind of guide you through what's available.
Oh, okay. Like what's, because my son being 4, I'm always trying to see like what they actually offer, but I feel like they don't really offer much. And
So I was gonna say too, Lisa or Bethany, are you able to share our contact information out? I didn't put it on the slides, or we can drop it in the chat. And
Absolutely.
Then if you, Michelle, want to specifically email one of us, we can be in touch about your specific child and what you are looking for them.
Because I have Vincent, but the thing is, like my DDS work, like his DDS worker goes to Vincent. But the thing is, like, I feel like they don't really have much. They promise to offer him like, like a lot of different things, like in the program, and they don't really have much. Like,
Okay, I don't mean to interject. So if you can put your information in the chat and we can pass it along to Stephanie or Mary. And
okay, I mean, if
yeah.
it makes sense, like they promised.
Yep. And we can talk about it specifically offline, about your child's specific needs. But yeah, we'll
Thank
make
you
sure
very much.
we'll make sure you get in touch with us.
Thank you so much. We have Carrie. Yes, sorry, Carrie.
Sorry,
and then we'll go to a
I
chat
didn't mean to
question.
interrupt you.
Oh, go right ahead, Carrie. Can you unmute yourself? Let's move on to. We'll come back to Carrie. Let's move on. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I was having a hard time unmuting it. The host wouldn't let me unmute. Hey, buddy. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on to this program. And I wanted to say, my foster child we're lucky enough to be part of the Autism Waiver program, and it's really fantastic. We've just been getting started, and I was curious with the changeover of the third-party vendor to Acumen, if you're experiencing a lot of hiccups with this, because it's taken like months and months and months, frankly, to transition or to get people approved, like providers approved. So my first question is, is this consistent across, that you're experiencing with the new vendor? And also, because it is, okay, and because of the really significant delays, I mean, first of all, we've had to find our own ABA therapist because there wasn't able, they weren't able to recommend any. And then because it's taken so long to even get a provider approved, and frankly, we're still waiting on the therapist to get approved. Does the clock start ticking on the 3 years once we're accepted into the program or once services begin?
So that is a current debate that we are having, specifically because of the issues we are experiencing with the transition between our financial management company. So we can't give you an answer at the moment because we're still in discussions about it. But Carrie, if you want to reach out to your specific clinical manager and let them know you were here with Mary Kate and I tonight, we can touch base a little bit further that way.
Okay, sounds great. And sorry, one more question. Do you think the budget allocations will sway or flex in any way about how much is allocated to like community enrichment activities? I know that there's a limit to several of the categories. Is that something that is, a potential for the future when you're redoing the process every year?
Yes, it is. We did request to increase our budget allocations for several budget line items and for the total budget for our new renewal with CMS. So we have not heard back from them yet, but we are hoping that they will approve our increases.
Okay,
but that
yeah,
was
that's great.
when,
I wasn't even thinking total budget. I was thinking like, okay, I didn't use budget from this bucket, but could I move it to like, let them do adapted horseback riding, for example, Yeah.
So we can't move within the different line items, but we're looking to do overall increases. But those wouldn't take effect until October.
Right. Anyway, great program. Thank you so much for offering it, especially to children in the foster care community.
Thank you. And I don't know if we have any more time or if we're over.
Yeah, I think we're probably good to move on to the next topics. And then if we have any time for an extra question or two, then that would be awesome. Thank
Just
you so
everyone,
much.
if you did not get to ask your question, please put your name, your preferred contact information, and your question in the chat. It's really important to us to get your questions answered. So please, if your hand is still raised, make sure to put your question, your name, and your contact info in the chat.
Thank you, Bethany. So a few more things. Some caregiver resources were created for families in 11 languages. The link will be included in the chat. It's also going to be shared on our Boston SpEdPAC website. So, they'll be available after this meeting easily. And then we're also starting the process. Myself and another board member are starting a book club called Boston Caregivers Neurodiversity Book Club. So it's in the very beginnings. Please contact us and help us develop it so it works for as many families that are interested in this direction. And both of these items will be put in the chat. And then we also have an exit survey, which we'd love to see, your reactions to this particular meeting. What we could do better, what was great. And that will also be shared in the chat. And the closeout, Bethany, do you want to do that part? And also see if we have another couple space for some more questions.
I think we should, just run with questions for the rest of the time, and then right at the end, I'll give one more announcement.
Perfect.
And please
There's
find
a
the
couple
exit
new
survey
questions.
in the chat.
Yep, there's a couple new questions in the chat. I'm gonna read the first one. Hi, my name is Nuno Barbosa. My son is 6 and he doesn't have an autism diagnosis, but has developmental delays and needs services. And I'm very interested in the program he's in at the Higginson K-12. Perhaps somebody can write directly to this person. And then we have Thelma says they're curious about ABA options before and after school. And is there insurance language that stops that from happening as it's before and after school hours? That both before and after school options are catering to a gen ed population.
Can I
We have
clarify
some
that?
hands raised as well. You getting any of the hands here? You have some hands raised. I see someone pro Max. You don't have a name.
Oh, wait, I think we're getting
Oh,
an
they,
answer to
yeah.
this question that I hope just asked. So can anyone from the district respond? This person says they're curious about ABA options for before and after school at schools. Also, I think Amy might be able to answer, is there insurance language that stopped that from happening as it's before and after school?
I will answer from the
So
insurance
okay,
side,
go
and
ahead.
then I'll let your team answer for schools. So insurance funded services are not covered in the schools, but there's definitely lots of families that access ABA outside of school, before school, after school, weekends, holidays, summers, whatever, through insurance. But I think your question might be school ABA outside of school hours.
Hi, Zachary Houston, Senior Director for Applied Behavior Analysis for Boston. It's a lot of letters, so I'll slow down for ASL. There's nothing that forbids it. Many of our before and after schools programs, however, are managed by community partners. So it would be a conversation with those partners. In terms of insurance providers providing services in BPS schools, they would have to meet all of our requirements for access to our school buildings, which is often a barrier for them. When they begin that process of accessing either through the partner or through us, they run into barriers that prevent them from being able to do that service. In terms of investing your time and energy with that ABA provider, I would encourage you to schedule the services in your home so you don't run into those problems and prevent yourself from accessing those services.
Can we take a raised hand or?
Yes. iPhone 11 Pro
iPhone
Max.
Pro and Max. Yeah. Yeah, hand raised. You can unmute yourself.
So I think you guys might have hit mute during the meeting and now everybody's muted. So when you do let a parent speak, just unmute them.
Yeah, I've asked them to unmute. I've pushed that button.
Yeah, I just don't want to be the one pressing the button and you're pressing the button at the same time. So Hope, if you don't mind.
Hi, hello.
Yes.
Hi, good evening. So my son has an IEP. He's transferred from Brockton. He's at the Higginson Inclusion in Roxbury. This program sounds like it would be really helpful for him. The problem is he has severe developmental disabilities, but he does not have an autism diagnosis. Hello?
That sounds like that's someone from the district that can answer that. What do you think?
Are you asking about the autism waiver program?
Yeah. Sorry,
So,
I joined the meeting pretty late, and I was just hearing like some of the services you guys offer, and it seems like that would be helpful for my stepson and my husband. But again, like I said, he doesn't actually have a autism diagnosis. He does have an IEP, and he does have delays.
Yep. Thanks, Zach, for catching that one because I did not. Unfortunately, we do need a diagnosis of autism to be in the autism waiver program.
Okay.
If the child has another kind of intellectual disability, they could be eligible for DDS services as a child.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the autism waiver program is specific to autism.
Okay. Could somebody in the district give us give us a little help because he's a single father and we don't really know where to go for resources for the child. Like I said, he does have an IEP. He's at the Higginson Inclusion School, and we are working with Boston Children's Hospital, but he doesn't have a diagnosis as of yet.
Hi, ma'am. My name's Lauren Viviani. I'm one of the deputy chiefs on for specialized programs. I put my email in the chat. I responded to your outreach in the chat and put my email. I don't know if you have access to email. If you could email me or just give me a call. I'll also put my phone number, and
What is
I'd be happy to
name?
contact you.
Yes? Are you
Can
from
you
the
hear me?
district?
I
sorry.
am. My name's Lauren
Okay.
Viviani. I'm from the district. I'm a deputy chief. I would be happy to contact you if you email me, or I can leave my phone number. You could call me. Happy to support you through this process.
Thank you so much.
Of course. I
Thank
responded
you,
directly
Lauren.
to your chat when you reached out via
Okay,
chat.
I'm just having a hard time operating a Zoom, and I'm a little old. Sorry.
Yeah, and it looks like you're also on a phone. So I will I'll leave my phone number and my email for you, and you can reach out anytime.
Okay, thank you. I'll be in touch.
course.
Thank you.
Of course.
This is Anne Marie. I
Thank
was unmuted. Could I ask a question?
Yes, go right ahead. And then we'll
Um,
go to Thelma after Anne Marie.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tough situation. So, my kid is no longer able to go into his classroom, and he has a phobia, which has been triggered. And we've tried everything, and actually we've been working on this with him for the last since December 2023, and he had to be pulled. It was a terrible time. We got over it after homeschooling, after trying a different school, came back here where we're now, but now it's back. And I'm just, the school is wanting me to continue to work with him on it, but he's missing school, and his behaviors are, and his self-esteem is again beginning to take a hit. And I asked for a safety transfer so that he can be in a classroom, have the structure, have the routine, because he wants to be in school. He just can't access his classroom anymore due to this triggering this thing that's triggering him in the classroom related to his phobia. So the thing is, I am not being supported to transfer him as soon as possible to a different school. I'm being supported to continue trying different things. Meanwhile, he's missing academic instruction. I'm being supported to apply for home education, tutoring. I can't do that because it would still be missing structure. He wouldn't have access to his. I'm getting feedback. I can't hear, like people are talking over me, and
Yes,
it's hard for
please
me to
put
focus.
yourself on mute if you are not asking a question. Thank you.
So I guess the question is, I believe, based on being my son's parent and going through this ordeal with him for a long time, that it's time for him, like now, to be in a different school. Because like literally this morning, there's nothing else to try, but it seems like that's not supported. And I now have the burden of figuring this out, supporting my son at home. I'm a solo parent who is not able to keep a job because of this, has had to give up interviews. Like, I just need my son in a classroom, and I don't know how to get him there. The safety transfer seems to be something that is very iffy because it's not related to him being hurt by anybody at school or other issues, but he is feeling unsafe being in the school, and he at home, and he's been bolting away from school, bolting because of anxiety. Like, things are deteriorating again the way they did last year. And I just want to know, like, how long is BPS comfortable with my son missing school before they decide to put him in a different school? Because that's what's happening. He's missing school, and of course, he's the one incurring absences. He's the one missing academia. He wants to be educated. He wants to be in the classroom. He can't access it, and he needs to be in a different school. So how long is BPS willing to put us through this before they actually transfer him?
Anne Marie, we have put some contact information. This is Kay Seal. I'm the Chief of Special Services. If we're I'm gonna put my telephone number if you can give me a call and we can talk about this, because I'm very concerned with what you just shared, and I don't know if there are other family members on here who also have some concerns about their children in terms of not getting the support that they need from the school. How long? There is no length of time, but I'm very concerned that this is even happening. So we need to make sure that you have the resources and the support, and that we put some systems and supports in place to help you and to help your son. So I am going to put my number in the chat if you can give me a call. And we can further discuss. I didn't get a sense of hearing how old your son is, but we can talk about that. So you can, I'm going to put my number so you can please give me a call. I know Lauren Viviani also put her number in the chat, but let's follow up on this as soon as possible, please.
Thank you. I just want to say his school has done whatever they could, and he has a therapist, and everybody's done what they know and what they can. But it seems like now, when I took it to the next step, which was the assistant director, she wants to continue trying things, and she's asking me to apply for home education for now. And I just want him in a classroom. I don't want him at home because it's bad for him at home. He needs the structure of the classroom, and he wants to be in a classroom. Thank you.
I have a question too, please.
Okay, thank you. This will be the last question, unfortunately. So please put your questions, your name, and your contact in the chat. Yes, go right ahead. This will be the last question.
Okay, yeah, I have a question to Boston Public School. So my son, he's 6 years old. He's in first grade inclusion. He's autistic. So since January, he's been like academically, he's good. He's doing good. So since January, he was having some behavior problem. And the school, they were pushing me to medicate him, giving him medication. The school principal, like, and she said, if I'm not going to give him medication, she's going to have to move him from the inclusion setting because of the behavior problem. So they like, we did an IEP meeting. They came with a decision that I was not in there. They just had bring like a principal from a different school, and they said this is the school that they decided that they're going to send my son to. So like having calls every day for the behavior problems. So when I'm asking, they're not giving any services, just like 30 minutes a day for ABA, just start this year. And they said, like, we cannot do anything, like we are tight, like our school cannot help him anymore. So I've been like pushing to sign the IEP. So I had to sign the IEP, and this week we just like moved them to that different school. And they were say, I don't know, are you guys still hearing me or not?
Yes.
Okay, so first they said he's gonna be like in a substantially separate classroom the whole day. So I reject the IEP. They switch it. Because I told them, like, academically he's good, and you cannot make like a change of placement for just like 2 months behavior. And they were like, no data collected, like they were not doing the right thing that they're supposed to do. So they agree. They just like were scaring me from like, oh, you're gonna have to go to mediation then. Do you know what's mediation? They just like were trying to scare me about like what's gonna happen in the mediation. So I just end up signing the IEP and sending my son like to a place that he does not belong to. I just like need someone to help me from Boston Public School, please.
Thank you, Miriam. Is it Miriam? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, Miriam, yeah.
Okay, Miriam, thank you so much. We've dropped our phone numbers and our emails in the chat, either Zach or Kay or me. Please reach out to one of us. We'd be more than happy to connect with you and help problem solve offline and figure out what the next steps are. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also
Thank you very much.
Can I say,
Go ahead.
Miriam, I just want to say
Mhm.
also, I am deeply sorry because it's not our position as a school to tell parents or to ask parents to medicate their children. So let's address that. And I really think that we need to make sure that parents understand that fully. So please give us a call so that we can work with you and work with the school to resolve the concerns that you raised tonight.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this meeting. Thank you to all of our presenters and to district staff and to our board members for putting together this informative presentation. I just want to remind you, if you did not get to ask your question, please put your question in the chat with your name and your preferred method of contact so we can get your questions answered for you. We're going to stay on for maybe an extra 2 minutes as we all say goodnight, just to give you time to put your question, your name, and your contact info in the chat. Also, don't forget, the next SpEdPAC meeting will be May 15th, and that will be Know Your Rights and basic IEP info. And then our last meeting for the school year will be on May 22nd, and the topic will be transition options for students, as well as our Boston SpEdPAC elections. And again, if you have any questions about roles or commitments or anything, please email us at bostonspedpac411@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. So thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you. Thank you to our interpreters, too, by the way. Thank you, and have a great night. And while people say goodnight, we will continue to hang out for a minute just to make sure that we save your questions in the chat.
Bethany, there's a question if these are going to be available on your website, the slides.
Yes, all of the information that was shared, all of the slides and links, resource links, will be shared on our website. And if you don't see them, quickly reach out to us and we'll get you all the information. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining. We appreciate you guys, the interpreters as well, and presenters.
Thank you for having us.
What is the website for the ABA?
Michelle, which ABA? Are you looking for the autism insurance list of ABA providers?
Yes, if that's more easier.
Okay, then that would be the Autism Insurance Resource Center. I'll put it in the chat in just 1 second.
Here, we can get that. Here's the link for that.
Is that better than the other
Added
one?
the links to all of the presentations and the caregiver resources, which are available in 11 languages.
Is it?
There's the link in the chat, Michelle.
Is this better than the other one?
Thank you, everybody. I'm not sure. This is the one that Stephanie presented.